For those who don't know what this session entails, it's Mick and Richard are the partners of surrogates. So I'm going to put some questions to them, which just gives the people in the audience a bit of a perspective of what surrogacy is like for these guys, because they didn't sign up to be a partner of a surrogate. I have no doubt that their partners came to them and said, I'm going to be a surrogate, and they went, okay. So, and you all know that I'm a surrogate as well, so I can understand some of the things that you're going to talk about, because my husband has been through that as well. So thanks, guys, really appreciate it. So Richard and Mick, I'll ask you some questions and get both of you to respond. So Richard, can you just tell us how many children you and Anita have got?
Yeah, Anita and I have got an 8-year-old biological daughter, and we've got a 6-year-old adopted boy from Thailand, so boy and a girl, 8 and 6.
Cool. And whereabouts do you live?
We live just south of Coffs Harbour, so halfway between here and Brisbane.
Cool. And how about you, Mick?
Cass and I have, Cass has 3 children, 2 boys aged 11 and 8, and a girl aged 7, and I have a son aged 7.
Cool. Do you remember, Richard, when Anita came to you and said, I think I'd like to be a surrogate?
Not really. I think you get told these things. I think probably about 3 or 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago is when she started talking about it.
Sure. And how did you react when she came to you and said, I'm going to push forward with this?
Well, I suppose it took me a little while to get my head around it. I didn't have too much opposition, but yeah, I suppose I just had a few thoughts about what will this mean and how will it work, and yeah, didn't know too much about it.
Yep. And Mick, do you remember when Cass said to you that she was going to be a surrogate?
I vaguely remember her saying she wanted to be an egg donor, but it just kind of all led into everything else.
Yep.
And now it's pretty much all she talks about. So.
Yep. So Cass and Anita have both had different journeys, and I'm sure that you'll both talk about that along the way. But what were your initial concerns when you realised that they were serious and they were going to go ahead with being a surrogate, Richard?
I think, I suppose my main concern, was just coming from a health background. I was, I suppose, worried about even just Anita's health as far as infection goes. Like, you know, if she's getting other people's DNA inside her, you know, is that going to be tested? Is it safe? So I suppose that was one of my concerns, really. And I was reassured that the clinics test for anything nasty. So yeah, that's probably the main thing I think of.
Yep. And how about you, Mick? Was there anything that you were really worried about initially?
I'm pretty easygoing. I go with the flow, so I didn't have any thoughts at the time of anything that was concerning.
Yep. Okay. Richard, do you mind just talking a little bit about your journey so far in the surrogacy world, and how many journeys you've been on and how many little babies have entered the world?
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Yep.
Basically, probably, yeah, the first journey was with a heterosexual couple who we connected with, and yeah, basically that was going to be a traditional journey where we're going to use my wife's egg and then the father's sperm, and we that journey sort of ended up in a miscarriage, and you know, some minor hospitalisation, and so yeah, that was really the end of that. My wife was pretty persistent, so she found another couple who were a same-sex couple, and that was our middle journey. And after a few transfers, the pregnancy was going well and looked great. But unfortunately, Yeah, at the 12-week scan, there was some problems noticed, and in the end, it ended up being like a forced termination of the child at about 17 weeks. Just on defect problems with the child. So yeah, that was our middle journey, and then our third and successful journey was with another same-sex couple, which was really great. And yeah, basically in July last year, my wife had their little boy, which has been a really great story. Yeah, it's good for us.
It's really nice to hear that you had a beautiful outcome in the end. And Mick, how about you and Cass? How did talk us through where you're up to now?
Well, Cass gave birth to a little boy in December.
Yep.
For a same-sex male couple.
Yep.
Transfer and everything went fine first go, and she spent the next 9 months being incredibly ill and bedridden, hospitalised 3 times due to dehydration. And then when she ended up giving birth, it was a 26-hour labour, resulting in a loss of 3 litres of blood and needing to be rushed to emergency surgery to have that all sorted out. But at the end of the day, they got a healthy baby boy, and
Cass is here.
Yeah, basically.
Yep. At any point in the journey, did you ever feel like that you resented your partner or were regretful that she made this decision to go on this journey? Richard, I'll ask you that. And I suppose it's valuable in knowing that you've got to the point where there's 2 little baby boys that have made it into the world because of the generosity of you and your families. So, but, yeah, at any point did you feel like, gosh, why did we do this?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really jumps to mind. I think probably the hardest and most emotionally charged part of the journey for us was when we had to go up to the Gold Coast Hospital in our middle journey, where essentially the child was deemed not viable and to continue through the pregnancy. So yeah, it was a pretty tough thing because I knew my wife was going in to have surgery to have the termination, and that involves risks, and also there's nothing really happy about it. So yeah, at that point it was that was sort of pretty tough. You think, well, now the journey's not going so well, and there's risks involved, and yeah, it was sort of probably pretty difficult. But she did recover from that pretty well, and then got her mind back on track into continuing where she wanted to go. So,
yep. Mick, how about you? Any times where you thought, I didn't sign up for this?
Probably most days.
Yeah. If you don't feel comfortable in asking that, I've got another question that moves on from that.
No, it's all right.
Yeah.
Basically, I'll support Cass and all of her crazy ideas.
Yeah.
So I do what I can to help out when I can.
Yeah. So it can be hard for the partners to try and negotiate how they support their partner and keeping their intending parents happy as well. So how do you negotiate with your intending parents what you and your family and the children in your families need at various times? Were you able to have those difficult conversations?
I suppose what helped us is that we all became Facebook friends, so we could sort of all chat to each other independently whenever we wanted, send a conversation to someone. So I think that's what we tried to do, is just communicate I'm not sure if I'm remembering your question, but yeah, we just tried to communicate and be respectful, and yeah, just if there's anything unsure of, just sort of ask each other rather than not knowing.
Yeah, I think that's the key in surrogacy, is that communication is the biggest thing, and if you're not going to communicate, then yeah, everybody's walking blindly. How about you, Mick? Did you ever have to have difficult conversations with your intending parents about the things that Cass needed, or the things that the children in your household needed, and those needs that you might have needed as well?
To be perfectly honest, I think Cass did most of all of that. I was the support person in the background.
Yep.
Communication is key, but we also had a large distance between us. The couple being from Sydney and us living in Taree, so it's a 4-hour drive to just if we needed their help or whatever.
So what advice would you give to intending parents or to those potential surrogates about how your intending parents can give you support? And I know we talk a lot about how we can do that, and I think in the ideal world we picture that it would be really easy, but sometimes it's really hard because, like you said, Mick, you live 4 hours away from your intending parents, and same with you, Richard, you live a distance away, so dropping off some meals is not always easy, and going around and doing the washing and things is not easy. So what's helpful when you're long distant, there's a distance between you?
I know our intended parents, they did often offer. They were sort of 5 hours away, 6 hours away from where we lived in Sydney. They lived in Sydney, so they did often offer. Is there anything they could do? Could they organise a cleaner, or they sort of made several offers to us in things that they could try and help. And I think we never took up their offer. My wife's pretty independent and thought we don't need that. But I guess that it was nice for them to be offering things like that, even though they potentially couldn't be there in person. They were sort of saying, "Is there anything we can do?"
I think that's, like you're saying, that your partner Anita is very independent, and that's quite a common trait with surrogates, and we very often say, we can do this, but it's you guys that see that actually you're not doing that well. So I think it's time that you ask for help, and sometimes we do ask for help and other times we don't and suck it up, or we rely upon you guys to read that situation and put it towards the intending parents as best as you can. Did you guys have anything more to add to that? No. So was there anything, now that you've given birth to these little babies, is there anything that took you by surprise that you didn't think was going to be that positive or negative?
A 3-litre loss of blood wasn't expected.
Yeah. Yep.
Took me by surprise. I guess, I'm not sure if this is answering the question, but our last journey with our intended parents was just seemed a very happy one, and then when it was birth time, it's something that we actually talked a bit about. Like Anita and I talked, how is this birth going to work, and when is it time for them to come into the room, or will they come into the room? And so we did talk quite a bit about that, and tried to come up with a plan, and then I think just how the birth worked, and then how the intended parents came into the room, and how that transformation took place over that next hour or two, I think was a pretty amazing and special thing, and it was probably not to our post-birth counselling session with Katrina, which was really great. It was sort of really reflected back on the birth experience and just how happy it was, but also how it is, even though it had gone so well, it is such a, when you look at it holistically, it's such a complex complex transfer. One person's having the child, the intended parents are there, very excitedly awaiting to receive the child, and yet in our case we felt the intended parents were very respectful in looking after Anita's needs and just not rushing and giving it time. And I think that was probably one of the highlights of the journey, is even reflecting back on how respectful they had been, the intended parents had been to us, and just how well that sort of transfer of care from the baby, from Anita to them, had gone.
Sounds beautiful. So in those weeks following birth, thankfully both Cass and Anita ended up with vaginal births, but Cass had complications. And I mean, the smoothest of births is always difficult to recover from, but it doesn't matter whether or not you have a baby for yourself or you have a baby for somebody else. We still go through the recovery and the hormonal responses to pregnancy. So how was that for you guys, supporting Cass and Anita in the 4th trimester when you didn't have a little baby to care for?
Our freezer got very full of breast milk.
Yep. Yep.
Same.
Sure. And prior to birth as well, the 3rd trimester can be a little bit difficult. Did you find that difficult? Hormonal rages, sleeplessness, whinging, looking forward to the end of pregnancy?
I think that first week after birth we had a full night's sleep.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
No crying baby. It was great.
Yeah, Anita's journey health-wise in the pregnancy was, I guess, was overall pretty smooth, and yeah, even post-birth, she felt and we felt really fortunate that she had minimal complications. So still feel like we got a get out of jail card free with that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, what's your ongoing relationship like now with your parents, your IPs that are now parents? Or, I mean, in your situation, Mick, they were already parents to a little boy before Atlas came into the world, but do you guys still see these guys? And do you think that that's important for you as a couple and for the children that live in your home?
Well, we made a relationship with them prior to offering, and our kids adore them. They adore their children. So they've become part of our extended family. So whereas we don't see them every weekend or whatever, there's still communication on Facebook. I mean, they're actually in Spain at the moment. Lucky them. Yeah. But we do try and maintain as much communication as possible. There's always photos on Facebook and everything like that. So they're always posting pictures.
Yep.
So we do get to see quite a bit of coverage of what's going on. And I'm pretty sure that's how it will be for the majority of our lives. So.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we're pretty similar. Like the social media thing really helps maintaining contact. I think one of the things that Katrina spoke about to us in our post-counselling session, so only a month after birth, is that she said that with her feedback, one of the biggest problems with the surrogate having problem is that she didn't feel connected to the baby. So well, I guess that's something that I would try and encourage intended parents to make sure that that can occur as much as possible, for the surrogate to have some sort of access to the child, if that's the right word. We were lucky that the intended parents called into our house on the way home from hospital, and so we got to spend some time then. And they've always maintained lots of photos via social media for us as well. So that's really helped us stay connected. And we've sort of, I'm sure the intended parent said to us, if you feel like you need to see the baby, just sort of come down. So even though we have seen the little baby probably every 2 or 3 months since he's been born, it was nice to have that. It was mentioned earlier about having the open door. It's nice to sort of know that if she really wanted to go and see him, she could. So yeah, they did feel like our friends during the lead up to birth. And you never know what the future is, but we sort of feel like they're going to be our friends forever. And yeah, I feel like the baby's part of our family as well.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I can relate to that as well, for us in our journey. What qualities do you think are important as the partner of a surrogate in going on a surrogacy journey from all that you've learnt?
Just being supportive, really. They're going to go through all these hormonal changes, and we got to step back and say, hang on, she's probably not angry at me, or if she's happy, yeah, that's great. But they're going to be hormonal, moody, just like as if they're pregnant.
That's right.
We don't understand all of it entirely because we can't be pregnant, but yeah, just take a step back sometimes and be supportive. Compliments help. Chocolate, roses.
Chocolate is good. What do you reckon, Richard?
Yeah, I guess just to try and be an advocate, I suppose, for the surrogate and your family, just to make sure that they've been looked after. Like, I think, even though I didn't feel like I had to do really much or any management of Anita and our situation, I think it's good to sort of be looking over it a little bit like a supervisor and make sure that everyone's being looked after. Making sure that even that the surrogate's being treated right by the intended parents, being respected, and I suppose you just maybe just trying as a partner of the surrogate, just to try and support and look out for their needs as well.
Yeah. These guys, they're really the unsung heroes in surrogacy. At the end of the day, it's the woman that gives birth, and they get all the praise for being amazing and stuff, but it's very, very rare to see that the guys get a pat on the back and saying, wow, what you did was amazing. And yeah, I think that you guys really go through quite a lot in going along in this journey. So I appreciate that you've sort of given us a bit of an insight into what it's like. Is there any questions from the crowd at all? I'll just grab you a microphone so everybody can hear.
I can be pretty loud.
Sure, I can repeat it anyway.
Out of interest, we've talked a lot about intended parents and the surrogate. Did you feel that you got a chance to get to know the intended dad and get a bit of kind of time there, going out for a beer, getting to know them a little bit, that kind of thing?
I guess every time, like when we first met the intended dads, we usually always met them as a couple. So I guess whenever Anita spent time with the parents to be, I was there as well. So sort of more or less felt when you were in face to face, it was always together. And then we also I both just chatted to them independently, I suppose, on social media, so you can sort of chat away and learn that way.
Did you want to respond to that at all, Mick?
Our intended parents were both dads, so we got together as a group and we'd just talk and get to know each other. So it's become like hanging out with friends now. They'll bring their kids over, our kids will harass their kids and then go outside and play.
Anybody else got any questions for these guys? It's coming.
What sort of strains did it put on your personal relationship with your partners? Like, does it cause any, I don't know, arguments that you wouldn't have ordinarily had, or something along that line where, you do get sort of really frustrated with each other during that period?
There probably was times where we got frustrated with each other and had little arguments, but I wouldn't say anything drastic. Mm-hmm. But my partner was sick a lot of the time, so for me I was working a 40-hour week and then coming home, and I was basically being a full-time dad as well to my stepkids. So it was a lot of stress on me to hold everyone together whilst she was bedridden and ill. And so there may have been some complications within our relationship, but nothing that wasn't ironed out.
Yeah, exactly that. The pressure was all on you, and then how do you cope with that? So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think, as I said before, I think we were probably very fortunate that Anita was so healthy during the pregnancy and sort of physically able to do all her normal things, and I guess that's one of the reasons why she wanted to be a surrogate, is because she had a good experience the first time. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. Like they say post-birth, for a woman, then she doesn't feel any more pain and everything, all the negative stuff's blocked out, and I sort of feel a bit like that. Now I can't really remember big issues or blow-ups during the pregnancy, but yeah, I think one big difference is that she was pretty healthy, and I think too we felt supported and on the same page as the IPs, just because we were in that good communication.
Yep, it all comes down to communication. There's another question up the back, please.
So, two questions. Richard, you had your own children earlier. Were there any substantive differences in how you cared for your wife or your partner during their surrogacy compared to your children?
I don't think so. I think as far as Anita looking after herself during the pregnancy, she was as strict and serious as with the health of the baby as for her own biological baby, and I think for me that was just the same. Like even though the baby was for another family, not ours, it was just pretty much exactly the same. I didn't really feel removed or separated from the pregnancy or the birth at all. I felt I felt like it was just the same as ours, really. Like, it's a weird thing to say, but I think the birth was just as happy as the birth of our biological child as well.
Which brings me to the second question then. So obviously the key difference is at the end the child is then taken away and given to the IPs, no longer Is. Was there anything that you had to do to specifically care for your partner around sort of like separation anxiety or postpartum depression, anxiety, anything like that?
We're almost out of time.
Yeah.
But it's a very good question.
I think one of the things that helped Anita post-birth and post giving the baby to the parents is that she was actually expressing milk for about 3.5 months for the baby. So I think that was really helpful for her, her connection to the baby and for her mental health, because it didn't feel like an instant, the baby's gone and now I've got nothing. Like she still felt quite physically connected to the baby. Yeah.
Did you want to respond at all, Mick, to that question?
I didn't have any other experience with Cass being pregnant before, so.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.